In 2016, the world said hello to Frozen Ever After at EPCOT, the world's first Frozen ride. And honestly, when Frozen was released in theaters a couple years before that, and since then, the animation in the Disney world have never been quite the same. It was an immediate smash hit, a worldwide and global phenomenon, and it needed to be included in the parks in a big way. That big way was simply an overlay of the Maelstrom ride. Now, due to technology at that time, what were the things that WDI thought were the future at that point? There were some choices in Frozen Ever After that were somewhat questionable. Overall, I think for an overlay of an existing attraction, the quality level was more than many of us thought it would be. However, the sticking point for many was the screen-based face technology animatronics that were in the attraction. Now, just 2 years before Frozen Ever After opened, we saw really and truly the first iteration of this technology, which was the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, which opened at the Magic Kingdom. Now, in a deep, dark environment and with characters that have a beard wrapping around their face in most cases, the projection faces seem to work pretty darn well. When they don't work really well is when you have female characters who don't have facial hair and you can't hide those seams. That's when things go wrong. So pretty much from the moment Frozen Ever After opened in 2016, it was a massive hit, very popular, but it was clear that the projection faces were not the way to go. Now, that being said, Frozen Ever After, huge hit, and in typical Disney fashion, it took way too long to get more Frozen into the parks all around the world, at least in ride form. It wouldn't be until 2023 that the next Frozen Ever After would open in Hong Kong Disneyland's World of Frozen. Then, in quick succession in 2024, we got Anna and Elsa's Frozen Journey at Tokyo Disney Sea, and now coming up in just a few days' time, we have the opening of Frozen Ever After at Disney Adventure World in Disneyland Paris. And of course, learning from their mistake of several years earlier, those attractions all feature fully physical-faced audio animatronic characters of Anna, Elsa, and Kristoff. And from the moment we reviewed World of Frozen in Hong Kong, we said, man, I really hope this comes to EPCOT. And now, it finally has. So how does the whole thing hold up? Let's find out in Tom's honest review of Frozen Ever After at EPCOT. This is a weird one because when rides have so we did an honest review of Test Track last year, Test Track 3.0, as many call it. That makes a little more sense in the full context of an honest review because in a lot of ways, it's mostly a new attraction. You know, the core elements of Test Track are there, but there are several new show scenes. There's a whole new storyline, whole new aesthetic. It makes a lot of sense. How, Tom, are you going to review Frozen Ever After, which in essence, what they mostly did was update some show systems, fix some lighting, and replace the heads on several animatronics? How does that equal an honest review? Well, the key here is that I've never done a video honest review of Frozen Ever After, and so we're going to use this moment to not only unpack the changes, but also unpack the attraction as a whole as it exists within EPCOT's Norway Pavilion. So we'll go on a quick journey through the entirety of the attraction and see how we feel about the complete product. Up front, I will get out of the way the new faces. Let's just get that out of the way. Now, this is what we've asked for a long time. And very honestly, I've done a lot of reflecting, especially with the new CEO being named, a lot of reflecting on the Bob Chapek era, which began, February 23rd of 2015. Bob Chapek became chairman of Disney Parks and Resorts, and he had that until February-ish of 2020, and he became CEO. And so, particularly those years where he's the chairman of Parks and Resorts, you could certainly attribute a number of things to him. Now, Frozen Ever After happened before, and so the projection faces are actually go back to the Tom Staggs administration, which, to their credit, I think when we saw Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, I still think they look good in that attraction when properly maintained. Doesn't always happen. I think the dwarfs look good. It worked. And so when we found out that's what they were going to do with Frozen, we're like, oh, cool. Well, it looked so good in Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. I think it'll look good there. We were kind of wrong. I think in some cases it worked. I think the Elsa in the Ice Palace, because of the way it's presented, the angles that the guest sees, you don't really see a side profile of that character in that scene. I think they got away with it there. Where they didn't get away with it so much, number one, was the scene with Anna and Kristoff before we head into that portion of the Ice Palace. And then the one that was the greatest offender was Elsa and Anna in the finale of the ride, because you went right past the seams. You saw that seam on the side. It looked like they had not blended their makeup. It was not good. That was really the moment in the ride where people were like, I really like that ride. But what's going on with those figures at the end there? That was weird. And honestly, I think all of that has been fixed. These figures are beautiful everywhere else they are in the world. It is really nice to see them here in Epcot and to see Disney finally listening. And that is a reoccurring theme right now. I told someone at Disney asked me, well, what are you excited? Are you excited about Villains Land? Are you excited about Cars? Are you excited about Monsters, Inc.? And I said, those aren't the things I'm excited about. What I'm excited about is finally Walt Disney World showing the love to its existing attractions that the other parks around the world seem to show whenever they embark on these little or even major refurbishments of the rides. I think Disneyland, in Anaheim especially, we have seen some really spectacular refurbishments of classic attractions the last 10 or 15 years. One of them that comes to mind is the Matterhorn. I'll never forget that Matterhorn refurb, where they got all new Harold the Yeti animatronics and new scenes, and the ride just looked beautiful. It was smoother than it had ever been, but still rough enough that you know you rode the Matterhorn. You're still in some pain. I think about a refurbishment like that, or when the Hatbox Ghost debuted at Disneyland for the 60th. I think both of those were the 60th anniversary. The little bits of magic that went into Peter Pan's Flight at that time at Disneyland. That's coming off the Tom Staggs era, and that's Disneyland management at that time. A belief in, we have to do some work on these attractions anyway. Let's spend some money. Maybe Mansion didn't need it at that time, but particularly Peter Pan and especially Matterhorn needed structural and mechanical work. And so let's use that time to reimagine the attraction and make it more than it's been to this point. Walt Disney World is not great at that. We have a couple of shining examples. One of them, that 2007 Haunted Mansion refurbishment, which made it, I think, the best Haunted Mansion in the world. There's a couple of those through our history. Not a ton, and certainly not a lot in recent times. And so that's why it's so surprising, and that's how you can tell you really are in a new era of Disney, where they announced, we're going to fix the animatronics on Frozen. Big Thunder's going to get retracked, but we're also going to get new scenes. Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin is going to get all this money poured into it so it doesn't look like absolute trash like it's looked for the last 10 years. We're going to update Carousel of Progress. We're going to repaint the castle back to how it was. These are all things that are not going to move the needle attendance-wise, and not immediately, at least, for sure. But these are incremental changes. These are things that mean something to guests who have been visiting perennially or even occasionally over time. These are things they're going to notice and are going to lead to higher guest satisfaction for them. As Disney, it's called, Michael Eisner, I think, called it, and now current WDI is calling these singles and doubles, if you will. I think they're home runs, because I think these are the things that build a fandom, build an admiration for your brand. These are the things that tell the people that love your company that you love it too. If I go on a ride and it doesn't look great, I think, like, man, Disney just doesn't care. They only care about building a new thing so more people show up and more money comes in. If I ride Frozen Ever After, let's say I'm Joe Idaho, to quote our good friend Bob Chapek. If I'm Joe Idaho and I come to visit Disney World, I came once post-COVID and I rode the Frozen ride, and my kids thought it was great, and I thought those animatronics looked great. I'm going to come back now. I'm going to ride Frozen Ever After with my family and go, those animatronics looked better. Wow, Disney really does constantly keep putting money back into their parks. They really do care. They're always pushing new technology. Again, if I'm Joe Idaho, I don't know about anything about the other Disney resorts around the world. I have no idea what they've done in Hong Kong and Paris and Tokyo. I don't know any of that. I'm going to start singing the Joe Hendry song at this point. But either way, I don't know any of those things. And so my only knowledge is that I rode the Frozen ride a couple years ago with my family, and the ride was great, but the faces looked a little weird. And now clearly Disney has upgraded the ride. That's cool. And then I'm going to go to Magic Kingdom and see Big Thunder got upgraded, and Carousel Progress got updated, and all these other rides. Buzz Lightyear looks completely brand new. I think that does more good for the brand than most executives in the company probably understand. Not all, but I think some didn't understand that, and that's why for so many years and even decades, we didn't have these little updates or these little upgrades. It's not a thing Disney World does. Disney World has kind of had the reputation over time that we run the attraction into the ground, and then it's like, well, now we got to do something. Space Mountain in 2009 rings a bell where there needed to be track work, and there was a lot of other work to do. And other refurbs, the Spaceship Earth refurbishment that was supposed to happen post-COVID and didn't, which was mostly, they were going to make changes story-wise and changes to scenes, but most of the work, the main reason for that refurbishment was mechanical fixes and structural fixes that needed to happen. And I don't know how much of that actually did happen in that weird short-term refurb a couple months ago. But it's neither here nor there. I am a big fan of current Disney management, not because we're bullish about $60 billion of expansion worldwide. It's because I see Walt Disney World, who has been the black sheep, not financially. Walt Disney World is the most successful of all Disney resorts in the world. But they don't act that way. For many, many years, they didn't act that way. You wouldn't think this is the cash cow of the division. You wouldn't believe that by how bad the maintenance is and letting the rides fall into disrepair and those sorts of things. And now with, I forgot to mention Country Bear Musical Jamboree and all this too. That's another one that for me is like, I don't think any executive thought there was a financial benefit to fixing and updating the Country Bears. And boy, were they proven wrong. It's now the 6th highest testing attraction in that park. It's pretty cool. And I believe the future of Walt Disney World, as important as Villains Land and Tropical Americas and Monsters Inc. and and Cars, as important as all those things are, it is so much as important, if not more so, to keep your existing legacy attractions up to date and up to standards. And I'm looking at you, Figment Ride. Maybe you guys should just knock that down and start over. Well, don't knock it down. We like the building. Just gut it, and I'm going to fit this into every review ever moving forward until it's done. So get used to that. So what I will say is the figures look great. They did an excellent job. This is a great upgrade that is purely done for guest satisfaction, and that to me screams Disney. That is the Disney brand I fell in love with, and you fell in love with, and maybe we're going to fall in love with all over again in some cases, except for when they knock down the Rivers of America and Muppet Vision 3D. That being said, again, tremendous update, but let's break down quickly Frozen Ever After at EPCOT. First of all, I think the queue is fantastic. I love the little, the Ice Master office that's up front, a little bit of extended queue in a room. Look, they knew Maelstrom didn't have a whole lot of queue. And let's be honest, I love Maelstrom. I would die for Maelstrom. But at the same time, the Maelstrom queue wasn't great. It was a bunch of green walls and some wood railings and a map. It wasn't a good queue. So the way they rework things and utilize the theater, the former theater, look, they knew they needed a ton more queue for a Frozen ride than they needed for Maelstrom. And so taking existing excess space like the exit theater, some of the old queue, and then some of the old exit space on top of that, and making that the queue is a great idea. That classic Disney is, this ride's going to be set at night because it's a dark ride. And so how do we establish it's night now? Well, you come inside and then we put you back outside into the village, and we've established now that you're here at night. And the village is beautiful. The detail is fully there. It is a really great queue. And I will tell you, if you have the benefit of visiting Hong Kong Disneyland, and I'm sure Disney Adventure World, they took what they made in this queue and made it 10 times better. They learned, and look, those are always going to be the better versions of this ride, and they have to be. They were built from scratch. They're new. They got to build a building the shape and size they wanted to build. So Frozen Ever After at EPCOT has a unfortunate handicap that just comes from being an overlay of an existing ride. But I still think they did the most they could with it. And I think that queue is a perfect example of, turning lemons into lemonade. They did a great job with it. It's a queue that really engages people. I mean, just today, we were like the first people at the soft opening. We're in the first 8 people. And there's a family behind us that I love the surprise and delight of a soft opening for people that aren't theme park fans, like just an actual family. The magic that was this mother and daughter, and the daughters thought on a trip to Disney World she was not going to get to ride Frozen. And literally they opened the doors in front of her and she just lost it. And then the magic of that moment of not expecting to ride the ride at all, and then suddenly you go through the building and out into that courtyard, and suddenly this kid that I'm sure loves the Frozen movies based on how she was reacting, not only did she not think she was going to get to experience this, but at that moment she's in the world of Frozen. She is fully immersed in that world. That to me signs, you don't need me to tell you if this queue is good or not. That kid just told us all. It's a pretty magical moment. I'll never forget how excited that kid was. And then immediately just how excited they were. Like, I am in Arendelle. I am here. Walking past the Wandering Oaken window, all that stuff. It's really very cool. Now, the ride system and the ride track are still very much Maelstrom, which is why Hong Kong and Paris are amazing. Because I'll never forget after Frozen Ever After opened, and you know, we used to deal heavily in rumors in this company. I remember hearing rumors that Hong Kong and Paris were going to get the ride, and that it was going to be essentially the same layout. And I'm just sitting there going, they're building two Maelstroms in the late 2010s. Maelstrom, which kind of, in a lot of respects, didn't deserve to be built the first time, right? It was a tight space. The layout of Maelstrom kind of just happened because they're like, well, we got to build 2 floors. There's not a lot of room for a ride building here. Let's figure this out. But that layout now got rebuilt 30 years later, 2 more times. That's crazy. That is crazy. But either way, ours will always be special because the bones of Maelstrom are still there. You still board those Viking ships, one of the most iconic ride vehicles of all time. There is no doubt. You still get to board that Viking longboat and go gliding off, and they're magnificent. They are certainly they are better aesthetically than the ride vehicles for the Frozen rides elsewhere. Functionally, no. My knees still get jammed into the back of that seat in front of me. It's not a great fit. They're not the most comfortable, but I will be uncomfortable for their continued existence. Certainly the new ones in Hong Kong and Paris, better capacity, better functionality, better comfort. It's good stuff. We leave the village. We go through. I think my favorite part of the ride is that transition. I love those icy fractals on the vines or the trees that are there. It's a really pretty moment. And then you're so awestruck by that. And then suddenly there is a animatronic snowman speaking to you. And it is, I think, one of the best animatronics they've ever done. I think it still holds up. I saw some complaints on our video today, and mind you, I'm gonna plug something here. Our video, our full POV ride of Frozen Ever After from today, the new version, is not on this channel. We have moved POV videos to a new channel, so you have to go over to WDWNT POV. That's where you want to go. You want to subscribe while you're there. You want to hit the like button, and you want to watch this Frozen POV. Please, we're trying to build up that channel. We appreciate the support. But I saw some comments there. People said, well, they upgraded Anna and Elsa and Kristoff, but what about Olaf and Sven? And I'm just sitting there going, what's wrong with these? Now, I know people don't like the screen eyes. I don't think the screen eyes are a problem. I think it gives some necessary life to the characters in many cases. It lets them be a little more animated than they would be otherwise. And also, like, the plastic eyes. You know, if one thing I learned from Country Bears is, as much as I love that attraction, the old Melvin and Buff and Max animatronics, the heads on the wall, they had their issues. They were loud, they were clunky. But the number one issue I would see was eventually the eyes and the eyelid would rub together. And so eventually you're seeing this character that's supposed to be alive, and there are marks on the eyeball. Now, in a world where we do daily maintenance at a Disney theme park, which happens to some of them, in a world where that happens, that gets fixed pretty quickly. In a world at Walt Disney World where it doesn't happen so quickly, people lose the immersion because they see scratches on the eyeballs of these characters. And it happens a lot with these animated style characters like an Olaf, like Max and Buff and Melvin. Happens like those because they have the bigger eyes They don't have human size eyes. They have cartoon character size eyes. So it's way more noticeable. So I don't have a problem with the screen eyes so long as they work. And at Frozen, I will tell you, I don't know how many times I've seen them not work. Ariel's Under the Sea, Journey of the Little Mermaid. That's the number one offender. Those three, I love to play every time I go on that ride. How many of them will work? And the answer is usually 0. Typically 0 Sebastians will have working eyes. I don't see the problem with it here. I think it gives necessary life to the characters. And the figures are so beautiful. That Olaf, the way it walks around and it prances and it jumps around, and even the way it emotes with Sven, that when the two of them look at each other, these are the real characters. You feel that. And when they share that like friendship, this is my friend look at the end of that scene as your boat's pulling away and they kind of look each other in the face and they're both smiling and happy. You really feel like you're in the film, and you really feel like those are the actual characters I fell in love with on screen. They're now here with me in real life. Now, screen faces are not gone from this ride, as we know by the next scene, which where we have the trolls. And the trolls are all still screen faces. Now, similar to Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, they have the benefit of a much darker scene, and it makes sense that it's a dark scene because we're sort of heading into a cave, cavern, and then we're going to head up to the Ice Palace. So it makes sense that it's darker here. And because of that darkness, and because they are made of rock, I think the seams are way less noticeable on their faces. So these work perfectly. I've never heard anyone complain about these. I don't think there's anything to complain about with them. I mean, let's be honest for a second. Even if the reason Frozen rides switch to physical face animatronics is mostly, and this is the story I've been told through the years, because Tokyo said no. Tokyo said, no, we don't want the screen faces. We would like them to have physical faces, articulated faces. And that was, well, if OLC is going to pay for it, I guess we can have it at the other rides then. That's the reason. But even in the OLC attraction, even in Anna and Elsa's Frozen Journey, you still have the trolls with the projected faces. So that's still a thing. So that speaks for how well those work, and I don't have any problem with it. Now, the one scene, I will say the one scene in the ride I really don't like is the lift hill. Number one, because it's Maelstrom and it was built in 1988. The lift hill's not great. And so it's that was the one big takeaway today was the ride looks beautiful, but the ride system is showing some age. It's an old ride. It's an old ride that got reskinned. That lift hill is as bumpy, if not bumpier than ever. I think bumpier than ever. I think they did what they could. I don't really care for the forced perspective, little flat ice palace at the top of the hill and the projected snow on the side. I think something better could have been done for this lift hill. And man, the best lift hill in any ride ever made, no doubt, Anna and Elsa's Frozen Journey in Tokyo. The fact that the lift hill is the journey up the North Mountain as Elsa sings Let It Go. I'm literally left speechless by how good that scene is. It was the perfect way to represent that scene. And if you're going to have a lift hill in a ride and explain why you're going up a lift hill, her journey up the North Mountain makes a lot of sense. Our journey up the North Mountain here isn't really explained. I'm sure it's supposed to be like troll magic is getting us up there. I don't know. Is Elsa making the snow move and pull the boat up the mountain? I have no idea. It's not explained. Either way, we get up there. There's the big sort of projection-y snowflake on the wall. And then we get to see another Olaf. This is the ice skating Olaf going past a fountain. And then we have Anna and Kristoff who are singing their little rendition of one of the songs from the film. And Sven, very cutely, has his tongue stuck to an icy railing in the Ice Palace. Again, I don't really have notes on these. I think these are, you hit all the notes that people that love the movie wanted, and especially children, which is, the ride is aimed at children. I think it's great for everyone of every age, but it's particularly aimed at children. So it's like, how do we get everybody in here and effectively? Like, what is Kristoff's role? And the only way really to get Kristoff in is Anna, and they have to. Why are they at the Ice Palace? Well, it's this festival. We're celebrating the summer snow day, which I do love in Hong Kong, and in Hong Kong especially, where they've worked that into that storyline carries throughout the land, and everything in the land is part of that very special event, celebrating when Elsa saved her sister with an act of true love. It's a really good through line on the whole land. Now, at Epcot, we don't get to go that far because it really just takes place in the ride and not in the Norway Pavilion overall. But I think it's well explained why we're there. It makes sense. And we get to go into the Ice Palace. And we have the quintessential scene of the ride, which is Elsa and her icy magic and singing Let It Go. And the coolest part is, people are sad that Maelstrom's gone. And I was sad to lose Maelstrom. I love Maelstrom. It was weird and wacky. Really the quintessential cult attraction. As a fanboy or a fangirl or just a fan of any kind, I think Maelstrom holds a special place in your heart because it just was so quirky and weird. How do you not love something that kitschy? And we did. And so, what I liked about Frozen Ever After, it was a whole new ride in many respects, but at the same time, the bones were there of Maelstrom. So it kind of feels, in some ways, it feels like Maelstrom never really left because we still have that. You still do the switch track. You still go backwards. And the icy magic she's conducting is just, it's the same fiber optic effect that was in Maelstrom when the trolls sent you backwards. So all those, the bones are still there, all this connective tissue. And that's what's so important. I tend to believe there are two ways to succeed. If you're going to rip out a classic attraction, there are two ways to succeed. Number one is in the new attraction has to be better. It has to be as good or better. That's always rule number one. And rule number two is it also has to be in some respects, some way, a loving tribute to what came before so that the people that have a grudge already coming in because you took away their childhood or something that they had special memories on. So those people are won over already. I think they did a good job of that in Frozen Ever After. Some of that is because the track layout had to stay because it sped up the project. But part of it is if we're going to send people backwards, she has icy magic, we should leave the fiber optic magic up there. That should stay. Now, I will say, other than the projection faces, these figures were impressive. I was blown away when this opened back in 2016, just as I was blown away today, even though I've seen these figures already in Hong Kong and Tokyo. They're great. They're top of the line, cutting edge. They look wonderful, and it's going to make a big difference for people. But her body movements in 2016 were as impressive. The game felt different at that point, especially Walt Disney World. We hadn't really seen figures like that yet. We hadn't really. We were just starting to get into the electric figure animatronic age, and this is, you got to remember, this is still a year before the Shaman of Song in Navi River Journey. So we hadn't seen that yet, and obviously that changed the game again 12 months later. But for us at Walt Disney World, that was a big moment to have those figures, and they looked that fluid was that the movement was that fluid. They were that crisp. It was unlike anything we'd ever seen. So impressive then and impressive now. One of the scenes that does bother me in Frozen Ever After is then I like the beginning of the backwards part. I don't like when it's Elsa's not going to move. Instead, you're going to see her reflection through projection in the icy walls of the palace that are forming. And that part of it, I'm I don't know. I feel like there should have been the budget for another figure. There should have been another figure here, and she sends you off out of the palace again at that point. I mean, I don't think anyone would have been like, how did she get down here that quick? Literally, almost every Disney ride ever is you going down a ride path and the characters keep somehow getting ahead of you. I mean, that's the entirety of Splash Mountain and Tiana's Bayou Adventure has been that premise. The characters somehow keep getting further ahead of you. It's not an issue. Now, today, the fog worked. So as you leave the Ice Palace, there's supposed to be always a fog, so you can't tell that some doors have opened and you've transitioned into a different room. And it's supposed to just feel like, oh, she sent us out with her icy powers, and now, we came out of a cave and we're outside now. And without the smoke, there's a lot of things you see like doors and things like that kind of kill the moment. But I'm glad, hopefully, that effect holds up. I'm glad it was shown some love during this short little refurbishment that the WDI folks were like, we should take care of that too, probably. And you go out, and we have our forced perspective little ice palace again, and we go back towards the waterfall. It used to be a waterfall you could see from inside to outside and outside to inside, and they sealed it off for show lighting, which I think they could have figured that out either way. And then we get to see Marshmallow and all the snow geese, and we go down the drop and back into Arendelle via the bay. And we have one of the better uses of projection mapping. I like how the Arendelle Castle appears. And one of my favorite things, again, showing love for Maelstrom, the puffins. On the opposite side of the path, we got to keep the puffins there. I love that. A wonderful homage. And then we go into the finale scene where we have Olaf singing In Summer with some modified lyrics with Anna and Elsa. And of course, now this has been fixed up nicely. It's a nice, I think it's a great ending. You got to kiss goodnight, if you will, from the characters, and you head off. And overall, I think it's a great dark ride. It is a fantastic little family dark ride in class. It feels like classic Fantasyland dark ride, but with the latest and greatest technology to take it above that. Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the idea of just making Frozen After again, but you've probably seen, if you haven't, it's here on the channel. We have our World of Frozen Hong Kong honest review, and I talk a lot about that version of the ride. And if you want to know what's different, it's a good watch. Once I saw it there and saw all the little pluses and the changes that have been made, and once there's a full land celebrating that storyline, it all made sense to me, and I really felt like it pushed what is a D-ticket level attraction to an authentic E-ticket. I still think it's kind of a D-ticket at Epcot. That doesn't make it bad. Everything doesn't have to be the greatest thing you've ever seen. It just has to be one of the best versions of that thing. And I think the Epcot ride is one of the best dark rides of that style that's been done. But I really think the Hong Kong version is E-ticket caliber, and I'm sure the Disney Adventure World one is very similar. They made it work. They made it work. As much as I love the Tokyo Disney Sea attraction. It's hard not to. It is a masterpiece. Anna and Elsa's Frozen Journey is a masterpiece. It's a wonderful book report version of that story. It is bigger and bolder and better than Frozen Ever After. But I like the total package of the land, Hong Kong and Disney Adventure World, more than I like the sum of the parts in Disney Sea. Because at Disney Sea, yeah, there's a little restaurant to go in, and there's the ride, but that's kind of, there's a village. You can't go in anything in the village. There's not really a lot of cast members around. It kind of feels abandoned. You can watch the Fantasy Springs Honest review also if you'd like. So I think as a total package, I love Frozen Ever After in the context of those two lands, because it's so much, the sum of the parts is greater than the single attraction. Unfortunately, that's not true in Epcot, but I think it serves its purpose there. World Showcase needed more for families and more for kids, and they have something that doesn't just work for those kids, it really works for the adults too. It is a quality attraction with a little bit of thrill. It's the right combination. But yeah, as much as I love Anna Elsa's Frozen Journey, absolutely the best version of that ride, but I love Frozen Ever After for what it is in those other places. And that would be how I feel about the attraction overall. But let me know in the comments how you feel about Frozen Ever After at Epcot. If you've been to the other parks, obviously you haven't been to Disney Adventure World yet. No one has. It's not open yet. But if you've been to Disney Sea in Hong Kong and you have comparisons or different feelings, let me know. I'd love to have that conversation below in the comments. Be sure to hit that like button. Please subscribe for more. Please continue to help me fight the good fight to get this guy an updated ride or a new ride or something. And we'll see you real soon.